Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mathieu, Vibrant Health. Next in our series of healing stories, I am very happy to introduce my dear friend, Doris, and she's going to be telling her healing story, which revolves a lot around oxalates. So welcome, Doris.
Hey, Michael. Nice to be with you. Very nervous about this, but like I said, if it helps one person, it'll have been worth it to make a fool out of myself here.
Yeah, and you're great, and I'm sure this is going to help more than one person. So thanks so much for being on the show with me. So your story starts right from the get-go. So what you're eating when you're little. So why don't you go ahead and dive in?
Yeah, let's just start at the beginning. I grew up in small town Germany, rural Germany, half Polish, half German, and we had a very high oxalate diet. There was lots of grains, lots of potatoes, and lots of rhubarb in the spring that we kids would just go out, grab the sugar and dip it into sugar and just eat it, because you couldn't eat it without sugar because it was so disgusting and tart. We had gooseberries and a whole wall of blackberries that was on the south side of our garage. And so we were playing outside constantly, eating whatever was in the yard, all the greens, everything we grew.
And now I grew up with a German baker grandmother.
Oh gosh, yes.
And we had raspberries, blackberries, and rhubarb, and so same thing at your house.
Strawberry compote, rhubarb strawberry pie, blackberry. I mean, the whole 9 yards, right? And that's part of it. You do your afternoon cake and coffee for those that have the coffee.
Yeah.
There was also lots of black tea drinking, right? And we were on a budget, so there was no sodas or juices or anything, but we had black tea with sugar in it every day, which also not a great thing to do. And
it's amazing you all didn't have kidney stones as kids.
It really is amazing, but my mom ended up with kidney failure, with renal failure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's what ended her life, basically. But nobody was talking about a diet and giving any warnings about what are you eating. And, oh my gosh, no, lay off the beets and the rhubarb, lady. That's really bad for you. But when you never have a kidney stone, then I guess oxalates are not a problem, right? We hear that all the time.
So beets were part of growing up too?
Oh, yes. Lots of beets.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I thought they were great too. And I ended up doing lots of beet kvass these last few years, which I thought, well, Sally Fallon Morrell is doing beet kvass, right? She's the head of the Weston A. Price Foundation. If she does it, it must be good. And I went overboard with that because I really liked it. And I thought it was healthy.
Yep. I did that too.
Yeah. Yeah. But so growing up, spring and summer, we'd have a really high oxalate diet. And then in the wintertime, as the freezer kind of dwindled down, it was more potatoes and grain stuff, and all the fresh stuff and really high oxalate stuff was out. And me and my twin sister would get sick every winter. Like from the end of November until about February, we had a horrible cough, literally getting blue in the face, coughing so badly, getting stuff out. Having a snotty nose, having fevers here and there. I would get infections on my nail beds constantly from absolutely nothing. And I thought I was going to die. It was just a horrible time. And
what was your thinking back then as to why you got sick every winter?
Yeah, back then, you'd go to the doctor and you'd be told, well, that's, just a flu, just a regular old nasty flu over and over each year, all year long or all winter long. And well, it's the doctor, right? You believe what they say and you don't know any better. You have no idea. Respectively, now I know what was going on. Had absolutely nothing to do with the flu or any other virus. It was pure oxalate dumping because we were eating such a high amount of oxalates every spring and summer. And it makes me mad to know that this could all have been avoided, you know, if parents are taught how to feed their children the right way.
And this is great. We were talking before we started recording, and as you were kind of just reminding me of your story, what you just described, I kind of feel a little dumb at the moment, because as much as I know about oxalates and as educated as I have educated myself and with Sally and everything, and I even as far as knowing that, well, you know, Sally Norton talks about seasonality, how you clear out in the winter. But I hadn't quite made that last connection of when you're clearing, your immune system is going to be challenged. And, you know, your body's flooded with oxalates coming out of you because it's trying to get that crap out.
Every which way.
Yep. And it's real possible you're going to get sick.
And not just that. Like, I remember when it was for 2 winters, when I was 12 and 13. Every Saturday, my older siblings would come and a couple of other relatives, and it was the old German cake and coffee around 2-3 o'clock. And as soon as the coffee brewed, I would start throwing up. I could not stand the smell of coffee, which I'm sure was an oxalate toxicity sort of problem as well that I was going through at the time. And it's just funny to kind of look back and try and put the puzzles together. And see just how much of it was oxalates. So
tell me your thinking with that, because coffee's low in oxalate, but do you think
it's the smell? I had sensitivities to the smell of coffee, you know, like right now, for example, I can't go into larger areas where people wear a lot of perfume, aftershaves, colognes. That stuff will make me nauseous instantly. And I think back then in the wintertime, while I was clearing, I had the sensitivity to the smell of coffee for whatever reason.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. My brain went into the direction of, oh God, her body knew it's like coffee comes with rhubarb dessert, and her body's like, no, get her sick now so she doesn't eat the rhubarb.
Seriously. And then, you know, as we got older into our puberty, growing really fast, we both got Osgood-Schlatter. I had it in my right knee only. My sister had it in both knees, and there was one other girl in our class who had it. None of the boys and none of the other girls had it. And I believe you said that was an oxalate-related thing, and it makes sense to me now because I've not had issues with my knees for a great many years. But just recently, starting in the middle of February this year, I started having joint issues, both knees, both hips, actually the whole pelvic region, and both shoulders. And right now on my right knee, where I still have, you know, you can see I've had Osgood-Schlatter because there's a big bump underneath my kneecap. But I will literally sit in the car and drive. And as I'm going from the gas, without moving my heel over to the brake, I get a horrible pain in my knee, and I literally have to take my right thumb, press it against my kneecap towards the left, while simultaneously using the other fingers to pop that bone over to the left until it pops, and then it feels fine again. And I'm sure it's because I'm doing some deep healing. I'm clearing out major storage right there.
Yep. I just want to, for viewers that because most people don't know about this condition or syndrome. It's called Osgood-Schlatter's disease. And what it is where the kneecap tendon below the kneecap attaches to the lower leg bone, which is the tibia, and it specifically attaches, and I'm an anatomy geek, so it's the patellar ligament attaching to the tibial tuberosity. And what's characteristic of it is it becomes like a little golf ball knob, not quite as big. Not quite as big as a golf ball, but you know, maybe cut one in half and tape it on there. And I don't know for sure if it's oxalate, if you can always blame oxalate on it, but it's certainly a sign of mineral deficiency, and probably the fat soluble vitamins, which help us build bones, vitamin A, D, and K2. And for most, and I know in the US, about 5% of boys have it, and it's very uncommon for young girls to have it. But it's the kind of thing where the knee is so knobby, and I used to hate doing kneeling on the floor because there's this, it's like a little bit of skin and all of your weight coming through the skin, through the bone, and it hurt like hell.
Now play volleyball on an Osgood's Gladder knee. That is just wonderful.
Because you're diving all the time. Right?
You're diving on your knees constantly. And there's no way you're not going to do it because you're going to be part of the team. And that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in your case, was it painful on its own? I mean, just walking around, could you feel it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. In my case, I have the obvious look, but my knee never hurt in that spot. Although in my 20s, I had knee surgery because I was having a lot of knee pain, and it was more in the joint. But when the doctors looked at the tibial tuberosity in the x-rays, those knobs of bone were fractured.
Oh, wow.
So there was pieces that were fractured, and he went in and cleaned it out. And of course, it didn't help my knee pain, but it was interesting. I mean, that's not normal. 25-year-old guy should not have fractured bone pieces in his knee like that. Anyway, back to you, but I just wanted people to know what that's about.
Yeah, and also, incredibly painful periods around that same area. Was a late bloomer, didn't start until I was 14, and it was just, I was cramping so badly.
Sure.
My whole life, it never got any better. So you take the Midol, you take the Pamprin, you take what you can to make it feel better. Now, retrospectively, I'm pretty sure there was some endometriosis that was happening, that was going on.
Yeah.
And then, dental problems as we were kids, going to the dentist and constant cavities.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Mineral deficiency, right? It's pulling from your teeth, so you don't have the calcium. But that stopped at around 18. Like, I've not had a cavity since I was 18.
Oh, interesting.
And I think the only thing that I stopped was we didn't eat the rhubarb anymore. I mean, it was the only thing that we had cut out at that point. So just that alone, I don't know if that could have done it, or if there was something else going on that I just can't put my finger on and can't put two and two together.
Well, it's just again for viewers, if you don't know, for those that are more new to oxalates, rhubarb is one of the most dense or highest in oxalates of almost all the foods, except maybe spinach and Swiss chard.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, life was good. We thought, everything was fine. I then came to the United States in January of 1992 because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And somebody in the local area where I grew up had a family member in San Francisco who was looking for a nanny. And I thought, oh, that's great. I love kids. Why don't I do that for 6 months? And then maybe I know what I want to do with my life. And before I knew it, I was over here in San Francisco in the Bay Area and kind of fell in love with what I was doing and have been doing that ever since. But what was interesting was when I got here, because even though we had a really high oxalate diet, it was also very rich in meat and butter.
Yeah.
So not like we were vegans or vegetarians ever. And I was eating that way. I would get chicken livers and throw these in the pan with some onions and fry them up in butter. And my boss went, "You are going to have a heart attack by the time you're 30 if you eat like that."
Oh, the cholesterol.
And I go, well, what should I eat? I certainly don't want to die of a heart attack when I'm 30. I had no idea about healthy eating. And so, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lean meats, and don't touch the butter. I mean, the butter is what's going to kill you. I was like, okay, I'm not going to eat margarine. I kept the butter in, but I quit eating the fattier meats and I went to, chicken and lean fish and a lot less than I used to and a lot more vegetables. And
what particular vegetables did you add in?
It was just lots of dark green leafy vegetables, salads, also with spinach in it as well. And we had lots of roasted beets, which I loved growing up already. I'm like, oh, that's good. If that's healthy, I already loved that. I can continue to eat those. And
sure. Did you eat the beet? Did you eat the beet greens too?
When they were young. I only like the young beet greens. I don't like the older beet greens. And I was not a big fan of Swiss chard.
Okay.
So at least I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But trust me, I did plenty of creamed spinach in my lifetime. I mean, especially when you boil the spinach. Okay, so some of the oxalates you pour out with the water then, which is fine. But if you think about a tub of spinach condenses down to absolutely nothing when you boil it, right? So you have an incredibly huge amount of creamed spinach, and I loved it. And it wasn't because of the spinach, it was because of the cream and the salty, garlicky taste, right? That's the thing you really are liking about the spinach. But you don't know that until somebody opens your eyes. My health was fine for the most part here in the United States, except I started having issues with my right hip. And I blamed it on the fact that, so I was a twin, and right after we were born, because I was on the bottom in my mom's uterus, and I was put into a body cast for 4 weeks after I was born to straighten my legs. And I thought, well, maybe the doctors messed up and my hip somehow wasn't adjusted correctly as I was in there. And that's what's catching up with me now. And then I thought, well, maybe it was when I was on the balance beam at 13. And I had an accident and I strained some ligaments, which could be part of it because that's where oxalates like to go when you're injured. That tissue is a great place for oxalates to set up camp and hang out. And so that went literally on for over 2 decades. I would be unable to walk without any pain. I couldn't sleep on my right side without pain. I would literally have to get a scooter when we go on vacation for sightseeing because there was no way I could walk. I could ride a bike forever. I could go upstairs, no problem. But as soon as it was walking just on a straight line or on a sidewalk where there was no incline, my hip would get so painful. And then there were times I would sit down and it would lock up. I couldn't get back up. It felt like it was dislocated. And I would continue to go to the doctor and thinking there surely has to be something on an x-ray that they can see. And there just wasn't ever anything, I was told it's osteoarthritis. And then in 2016, I decided, because I didn't want to end up like my parents, getting into your 50s and starting to fall apart completely, that I was going to get healthier. And I decided, okay, it's time to cut out the sugar. I'm a big fan of chocolate growing up in Germany. Chocolate is a big part of life there. And what I didn't realize is that I ate a really large amount of chocolate covered nuts at that time.
Yum, double oxalates.
Yes. And so about 6 months after I cut out the sugar, my hip stopped completely with the pain, with all the issues were gone. I had no more trouble with my hip. And I thought, isn't this amazing, right? It's sugar. Sugar messed up my hip so badly because that was the only thing I cut out, right? And 6 months later, I am running around and I can walk for literally 20 miles a day without any pain. And I was so excited.
So you cut out the sugar.
I cut out the sugar.
Means you cut out chocolate.
I cut out the chocolate, and especially the chocolate-covered nuts. There were chocolate-covered almonds, cashews.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you still eat nuts, or did you end up?
No, I cut those out. No, because nuts without chocolate that's just disgusting to me. So. However, it didn't take long until I then went keto, and then the almond flour came back in, because now you're making almond flour bread and you throw in some chia seeds as well. And I thought I was doing a healthy thing. And lots of big salads every day and chia pudding. You know, I put the chia seed into the kefir with some blueberries or some raspberries. Blueberries wouldn't have been so bad, but anyhow, so then I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to go full in on this healthy keto eating thing, except I'm going to continue with my kombucha because I love the fermented stuff and that's great for you. All these microbes that are so good for our gut, I'm going to keep them common. So I made beet kvass that I drank every day, and I made kombucha fermented with elderberry that I made every day. And I had a lot of that. I move all day, every day. And in the summertime, I sweat like crazy. And so I continue to replenish with beet kvass and kombucha, which is just wonderfully healthy. And then in 2019, I ended up in November with toxic hepatitis.
Wow.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was partially oxalate related. And the other part of it was the poisons from the elderberries. I made my own elderberry syrup because everybody said elderberries is a great thing when you have trouble with your immune system, keeps you healthy. However, when you have as much as I did every day in the kombucha, it more than likely is toxic because there's so many. I mean, we know from Anthony Chaffee that plants, besides oxalates, have dozens and dozens of defense chemicals that are not good for us. And so I ended up on my back in bed, being sick as a dog, not having any appetite, no bile, obviously, because your liver's not working. You have toxins in your blood because your liver's not working that make you feel absolutely horrible. And a week and a half into this, because you don't have appetite, you can't eat, I now know was my first dumping episode because I got vertigo at that same time. And I'm pretty sure I got that because I wasn't eating and my body started dumping oxalates.
Yep.
So now I'm feeling crappy from having the hepatitis, and on top of it, I'm basically living above the toilet, gagging like crazy, trying to expel stuff from my body that isn't even there. So basically just liquid stuff coming out, feeling absolutely horrible. And I thought I was going to die. I mean, I thought that was it. There I was trying to be so healthy, and now I'm dying way before my parents did. And took about 6 weeks. I was home 4 of those weeks, and I started to feel better, went back to work, took it easy. And then COVID hit. And at the same time, my twin sister in Germany got cancer, and I continued to try and be very healthy. Started to feel very stressed, started having panic attacks and anxiety, and feel very moody. And I blamed it all on the fact that the uncertainty about what was going to happen with COVID. Would I lose my job if I don't get a vaccine? The fact that I couldn't visit my sister and help her with her cancer issues back in Germany because I couldn't travel into Germany being unvaccinated. I thought all of that ended up putting so much stress and trauma onto me that I started having those issues. And then in
Can
August...
I stop you for just a second?
Yeah.
So are you still keto at this point?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm about to get to the carnivore point. Yeah.
Oh, no. But when you went through this illness, you were keto coming into it.
I was still Yep. I was still doing keto. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then in August of 2021, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Take your time. If you haven't noticed, I cry all the time in my videos, Doris. And I think that's one of the reasons people like them so much.
we're freaking waterworks anyway.
Yeah.
My twin sister committed suicide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it was still impossible for me to go to Germany. So I was dealing with that from over here because they couldn't find her body. She was missing. She was in a clinic. She was still dealing with a childhood trauma at the time. And her diet was so bad, including the fact that she was an alcoholic, that her mental state was so bad, which is what ended up taking her life, basically. But because I couldn't go to Germany, the police tried to find her after she had returned to the clinic where she was staying at the time. And so I literally, from over here in the United States, got a dog team together in Germany because the police had given up a week later of finding her, and told them exactly where to look because she had tendencies to threaten to kill herself and would always send me pictures like, this is where you're going to find me one of these days if you're looking for me, dead. And so the dog team found her 2 weeks after she had disappeared, finally. So we had closure on that. But right after all that happened, I started to have issues with insomnia, just horrible insomnia, right? And I blamed it all on the whole COVID and then the whole sister situation. And It would make sense, right? Because it's a traumatic.
Totally reasonable.
And I thought, okay, I have been looking at Kim Berry and Sean Baker and Anthony Chafee for quite some time. I'm just going to go cold turkey carnivore now. And I had been keto up to that point, eating my 10 cups of greens every day, at least.
That much?
Oh, yeah, like Dr. Berg said. And my GP said the same thing, actually. Lots and lots, because they called her the keto doctor in Oakland at Kaiser. And so I thought, oh, well, she's the doctor. She knows best, right? And so, yeah, I had at least 10 cups of veg every day. And then I thought, all right, you know what? I love how everybody's problems disappear when they start going carnivore. And so I did that cold turkey. Bad idea. People don't go carnivore cold turkey. But I did that in November. And I knew I was going to get the keto flu, right? Because your microbiome is changing within 2 days. Whatever isn't getting the fiber and the sugars anymore from the fruits is going to die off, because that's just what happens. If the microbiome doesn't get the food, it dies off. And so you have these endotoxins released and you feel sick. But a day and a half later, that was gone. And I felt great. I'm like, okay, I'm in the clear. And then 2 more days pass of me feeling good. And then all hell started breaking loose. I started not sleeping again. I started getting a rash that started on the back of my legs, my calves, tiny little bumps. And I could feel it with my hand, but barely, but my clothing would get stuck on it as I'm trying to pull on my pants. And I'm thinking, what on earth is coming out of my body? And every day the rash would move higher and higher. And in a couple of days, it was basically by my groin. And I ended up going to my GP. She doesn't know what it is, but, here's a steroid cream, put that on. I'm like, you don't know what it is, but I'm supposed to put steroids all over my legs, my skin. That's my largest organ. That doesn't make any sense to me. No, thank you. So then I ended up with a dermatologist. Well, we can tell you what it isn't, but we can't tell you what it is. In the meantime, it's moving up. It's now on my bums. It's on my flanks, and it's itching like crazy. I'm literally sitting there all day long, scratching myself and feeling horrible. And when you can't sleep, everything is amplified, and, little things become gigantic elephants in the room. And it's very difficult to deal every day. You try and get through your day and hope that nobody notices that you're about to lose your shit, pardon my French. And I keep seeing more doctors, and then at some point they throw Sjogren's syndrome at me. Yeah, that's an autoimmune disease, and it looks like you have that because by now, beside the rash, I lost my tears. I had no more tears, and I'm a Pisces. I cry easily and quickly, no problem. And I had no saliva. My tongue started to literally have cracks in them that were so deep and painful. It was like a dry riverbed in there. And I was going insane. It felt so bad. And I'm really ashamed of admitting that, especially after my sister had just committed suicide and done that. But there were literally fractions of seconds when I would be driving home from work and I thought, this could be over so easy. I just have to stop the car right here, jump over the freaking bridge, and that's it. I'd slap myself out of it instantly and go, no, that's whatever's going on. You'll figure it out. It'll pass. It'll be fine. You weren't born with this. Something's causing that, and you're going to figure out what it is. So after the doctors had told me it's Sjogren's syndrome.
Can I pause for 1 sec?
Yep.
So when you said no more tears, and you implied crying, but were your eyes like super dry also?
Super dry and grainy as can be. It's so painful. They were so red and irritated. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you have pink eye, right? But amplified.
Yep.
And so after the doctor had told me it's Sjogren's syndrome, it's an autoimmune disease. We don't know what causes it. We don't know where it comes from. There's not really anything you can do about it. There's medication, but it doesn't really help much. And basically, you're going to have to live with varying symptoms of this for the rest of your life. And I just about lost it. I literally walked out with my birdie finger up in the air and said, you know what? If you can't help me, I'm going to figure this out on my own. There's no way I'm going to live the rest of my life with these symptoms, even in lighter degrees, not happening. And so because I wasn't sleeping anyway, after I get home from work, I'd be on my phone trying to figure out what in the name of Christmas Eve was going on with me. And it took me a whopping 4 weeks. And I finally, after putting in like a surge of crystals coming out of my body, because it felt like I had fiberglass growing out of my pores. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them, like these tiny little cactus hairs. And I got on Sally K. Norton's page. And I was
were you staying carnivore this whole time?
Yeah. So okay. I continued to be carnivore the whole time, not putting any more vegetables in again. And no doctor asked what I was eating or if I had made any dietary changes recently, right? Because maybe that would have helped something. And I looked at Sally's page and I was like, that has got to be it, because gosh knows I've been eating those foods my whole dang life, basically. And I tried to make an appointment with her, but she was booked so far in advance. I'm like, I can't wait this long to figure out if that is what it is or not. So I looked her up to see if she was on Instagram, and thank goodness she was. And I sent her some pictures of what was going on with my skin, and
that was an easy response for her.
Telling her about my other symptoms, if it could be oxalate related. And she was like, within 2 hours, getting back to me. Yeah, most definitely. That's what it looks like. I'm like, hallelujah. I know what's going on and I can fix it. And I was just, from that moment on, reading anything and everything I could about what is it? How can I make it better? And literally within that same week, I was sleeping again, and I've been sleeping like a baby basically ever since. I have maybe one bad night every 2 weeks where I have a hard time falling asleep, perhaps, but I still get great sleep. And
do you have any sense with those once in a while bad nights? Do you have any sense of them being when you're dumping?
They're definitely when I'm dumping harder. Yeah. And I do know how to help myself right away, and also like my mood is changed again. I'm a normal person again. I haven't had any anxiety or panic attacks since, it's been a year and a half that I've been carnivore, over a year and a half. And it was February of 2022 when I figured out that it was oxalates, and I started taking citrates, the magnesium, the calcium, and the potassium. And that helped immensely. And I tend to not eat too many oxalates because I feel like my trigger and maintenance dose is so incredibly high that I can't psychologically get myself to eat enough to lessen my dumping symptoms. But what really helps for me is to just add a little vitamin C in. And that has the same effect, but I don't have to go overboard. I don't have to take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day,
How much does it take usually?
I drink a lot of lemon juice. So however much is in the lemon juice is basically what I get, because I don't use any supplements anymore either, not even the citrates, because as it turns out, I used to get, what's it called? Pure encapsulations.
Yep.
And then found out it's made by Nestle. And I was just like, no, I'm not putting my money into Nestle. I'm sorry. I'm just going to drink more raw milk and get my electrolytes that way and help with my acidity that way. And as well as the lemon juice that helps with that as well.
So how many lemons a day do you do these days?
Well, my lemon tree is bare, but it used to be 5, 6. So right now I buy the Italian volcanic lemon juice because that's very easy to do until I have lemons on the tree again.
Okay. I do 5 a day, so that's why I was curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps me because when I don't do it, I notice a difference.
Yep. I did that experiment over a year ago. I was like, God, maybe I'm doing too many lemons. That's why I'm having some symptoms. Because I heard Sally got to a place where she started having trouble. Yeah, so I reduced my lemons to like 1 or 2 a day. And I had so much. And one of the big things I noticed is I get all this grit coming through my eyelids, through probably both the tear duct and the oil glands, that my eyes get ridiculously dry. Yeah. And I often notice I'll do a lemon drink, and then within 30 minutes, all of a sudden I've got lubrication in my eyes. Yeah. And so when I reduced the lemons just to try that experiment, I don't remember if they got super duper dry, but I started feeling like I was getting an infection. And, and I think it started swelling up a little bit. And probably because it was so blocked. I have a feeling that's what happens with styes and stuff a lot with people, is their ducts get blocked. Anyway, as soon as, and then colloidal silver always works in a few hours when I have an eye infection. Well, it wasn't touching it. So after 2 days, I was like, all right, put the lemon juice back in. And I did a couple lemon drinks pretty quick, and my eyes started working, and the infection in a day, the infection was gone.
Yeah, there you go.
It's amazing.
That's the other thing, having to really work at learning how to listen to your body, because you can do one thing and it's working great for you and you continue to do it. But all of a sudden, like, for example, with drinking milk, it's very clear when I overdo it, because my body literally tells me if I go near milk, I get nauseous. Like I can't even get it down. And that'll go for about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I crave it again and I have to go get the milk again. And I think if we just listen to our bodies, if we're quiet enough to let our bodies tell us what they need. And I'm not talking about, I'm craving chocolate covered almonds. Don't run out and do that. But there's clearly something going on that your body is needing. And so eating something is always a good thing for me to do. Yeah, but it's been quite the learning curve these last 19 months or so. But I wouldn't change it for anything. I mean, when the skin dumping went about 6-7 months and then it stopped, and I had a wonderful summer last summer. I was not dumping at all. And I thought, oh my gosh, could I really be this lucky? Is it over? Am I done?
Yeah.
Is it all out? Right? Because it went for 3 months. I was feeling so great. And then fall came and the weather changed and my skin dumping was back. However, it was so much lighter. If it was a 9 on a scale of 10 the first time around, the second round was maybe a 3, a 4 tops.
Yeah.
However, what was coming out was now sand kernel size crystal oxalates.
Yeah.
Calcium oxalates, not crystal oxalates, calcium oxalate crystals. And so that changed. It wasn't like the fiberglass stuff anymore. However, what I forgot to tell, that first round of skin dumping, I would only get relief if I take, this sounds horrible, a sharp knife and almost like shaving yourself, you just scrape what I thought was dead skin off once a day or once every 2 days.
Yeah.
And then I thought, this cannot be dead skin. People don't have skin falling off them like this. What is in that? And so I would scrape it off and I take the stuff that was on the knife and put it on a paper towel, make it wet a little bit, and start rubbing it on dirty copper, and it would polish the copper. So the tiny crystals that were coming out of my skin were literally hard crystals that would polish up copper. I mean, if that's normal for us to have come out of our bodies, then I guess I'm really normal.
Wow, that's crazy. You tried that experiment.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that was your first round of dumping.
Yeah, that was the first round of dumping. The second round of dumping.
We talking fall of 22?
Fall of 22, yeah. And that lasted about 3 months. And then it was a much shorter cycle and much less severe. I mean, it was completely tolerable.
So how are your hips doing these days?
Well, so my hips were great at the time. And then starting this year in 23, mid-February, it basically all started right at once. I started having a horribly stiff neck. I started having really stiff hips and stiff knees. And then the bottom of my left foot, my left heel would hurt as well. And that's been going on basically for the most part since mid-February. And I know it's oxalate dumping because I did eat enough oxalate at one point just to see if it was anything else. And it went away after I had the oxalates for a good 24 hours. And then it came back. And then it also went away after I had a tooth extraction because of osteomyelitis, which I'm sure was also a problem due to oxalates. But after the anesthesia, I had no joint pain for 3 whole days, which was fantastic. And I'm sure that was my body saying, all right, everybody who's working on the oxalates, we got some pharmaceutical crap in here. We need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Quit working. This takes priority. Get over here and get going. And when that was out, then the joint pain was back. But yeah, so with the tooth extraction and the osteomyelitis, I started having tooth pain in January of this year, my lower left, number 19, and went to my dentist. She took an x-ray, she examined it, couldn't find anything wrong with it. She's like, well, could just be an inflamed ligament underneath, because the pain felt like it was underneath the tooth, not the tooth itself. And I'm thinking, all right, oxalate dumping, inflamed ligament, makes sense. Absolutely. And then about 5 days into it, the pain was gone just as quickly as it came. Yep. With like a pop. It was just over from one second.
You heard an audible
There was
pop?
a pop. There was a pop. And I thought, that is so freaky. And at this point, I was sure it was oxalates, right? So then a month later, in February, I have the exact same pain again. It starts up again. I'm like, all right, another dumping cycle. How long did it last? 5 days last time. All right, well, I'm not going to go to the dentist this time. If it lasts longer, if it gets worse, I'll go. I didn't go in February, and a week later, pain was gone, no problem. And then in March.
Was there a pop again?
No, I didn't remember the pop this time.
I just got to chime in really quick because this is fascinating. Just last week, every time I clenched my teeth on the right side, either when I was eating or just clenching, I'd hear, I could feel it and I could hear it. It would do a little click. Like, like sometimes you move your neck because it feels tight and you get a little click and you get a release.
Yeah.
I had a tooth somewhere in there that was, and I started thinking, oh God, it's probably oxalates, but this is really weird. I've never had teeth that made clicking sounds like they're getting a spinal adjustment or something. So anyway, I've never heard anyone else say it. So it's fascinating. You're talking to me about this pop. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I just had to.
No worries at all. And then in March, the same. Oh, no pain comes, right? In March on a Sunday evening, I am in a bathroom. I'm flossing my teeth and I'm like, what the heck is that? There's a bump on my gums, right on that tooth area where I had the pain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dang, there's an abscess forming. So Monday morning, I call my dentist. Oh, shoot, they're closed. Call them Tuesday. Hey, I got an abscess forming on that area that I've been in January for. Are you in pain? No. Can it wait until Thursday because we're really swamped? I'm like, yeah, no problem. So then on Wednesday, the abscess was really big and it started to pop, right? So there's pus coming out. Completely disgusting. TMI, I know, but maybe you have that issue. It might be helpful to know. So then I go to the dentist the following day. You couldn't see much anymore because the abscess had drained at that point and it looked almost normal. But she goes, yeah, I don't know what's going on. And she sends me to the endodontist, thinking maybe I need a root canal. Maybe they can see something. So they take x-rays over there. And she comes back and she goes, this is so weird. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm like, oh great. What? Well, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your tooth. I cannot find anything wrong with it, not on the x-ray, not on the examination, but you have bone loss right underneath the root area, which should be bone, which should hold your roots into place.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so what do I do? I don't know. I mean, I could either send you to a periodontist to try and save the tooth or to the oral surgeon for extraction. I'm like, I'm 54. I don't want a tooth extraction. Well, what would you do? She goes, well, why don't you take the weekend, because it was a Friday, and then call me back on Monday and let me know what you want to do. And that's where I'll send the referral to. So that same day, I'm back at work, and a few hours later, the endodontist calls me back and she goes, I reviewed your stuff again with a couple of colleagues of mine, and we think you'd be wasting your time and money if you went to a periodontist trying to save the tooth. We think it should be extracted. There's clear bone loss. There's an infection going on, and that it needs to be taken care of. And so I went and called an oral surgeon and had that tooth extracted. But before I went under anesthesia, I told him, hey, do me a favor, put that tooth into a baggie for me, please. Because I'm a learned goldsmith by trade. So I have a couple of microscopes in the back for jewelry. And I thought, I'm going to be able to see what's going on with that tooth under the microscope, right? If they can't find anything, maybe I can. And so I took the tooth home, and as I'm looking at it under the microscope, I'm scraping the gunk away with a little tool, and there's a dang pinhole in one of the roots. And that is how some stuff got into my bone area and caused the osteomyelitis, right? And I mean, it was clearly the right thing to do to have the tooth taken out, but how on earth do you get a pinhole in your root if it is an oxalate dumping, right? If there isn't calcium oxalates being, broken up by the body, and now you've got a pinhole and you get stuff in there that's messing up your bones. So it can cause infections quite clearly. And it's just ridiculous.
Wow.
Fun times.
Fun times.
Fun times. But what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Mm-hmm. Builds character.
Yes, it sure does. And whining doesn't help much either. You just got to grit your teeth and go through it. Full steam ahead.
So I had asked you about your hips, and you said they were better. Did they get worse again? Are they worse now? Or
yeah, they're pretty bad right now. I'm literally, I mean, walking is fine. Going upstairs is fine. My problem is literally getting up and down. From a seated position into a standing position.
Sure.
I have to go incredibly slowly. And like, I can't even go out and play badminton with the wife right now because I can't make any fast movements because I feel like if I do, I'm going to tear a ligament or hurt something, you know? So I'm moving like a 90-year-old and it feels like it too in my hips. And so then I think, okay, I'm going to use my arms as I get up, you know, but the shoulders are messed up the same way. So I don't have to strengthen the shoulders to help along. So it's just quite the comedy show to look at myself now, because I always thought of myself as a fairly strong over 50-year-old. I don't work behind a computer. I'm on my feet all day.
Yeah.
And lifting stuff around all day, you know. I think I'm a lot stronger than most people my age are, but my ligaments and my joints and even the muscles around it right now are so messed up from the deep dumping that is going on that it's weakened me incredibly.
Yep. You're in the fragile stage.
Yeah. But I know this too shall pass because the skin dumping passed. So did the insomnia. So did everything else that I had.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about, you know, all these different dumping symptoms that you had. Yeah. I'm curious, is cloudy urine something that you track at all?
I have only had cloudy urine maybe twice.
Oh,
however, wow. I had very bubbly urine in the very beginning. So mine is attached, my oxalates are attached to proteins. And then it stopped for the summer as well. And it started up again last December with the cloudy urine. And it has been steadily going. Every morning is incredibly bubbly. And then it gets better throughout the day. It's normal. And next morning, same thing again. So I know when I look at my urine, I know TMI, but I see how bubbly it is in the morning. And I know that my body was, and my kidneys were hard at work clearing crystals from my urine. And I'm not someone who likes to go to the doctor. There's a lot of people who like doing blood tests to check on their, you know, kidney function, their liver function, to see what's in their blood, yada, yada, yada. I'd much rather not know. I know that when you take your blood, you only get a picture of what's happening right this very moment. And if you take your blood 5 hours later, it can look completely different. And I don't want that added stress of thinking there's something wrong when it's just a normal thing that's happening right this very moment, right? But I got myself one of those, you know, deeper medical microscopes. And I was literally
you're a scientist at heart. I love it.
I like to look at the crystals coming out of me from my urine, from my tears, my saliva, looking at my tartar. I mean, anything and everything I will look at under the microscope, and I can find freaking crystals in everything.
Wow.
Yes.
You know, I didn't know you did this because we're just getting to know each other. But if you would be willing to share some of those pictures, I've been trying to take some. It doesn't work with my dang iPhone. I can't get any pictures from the thing, and it can come with the camera, which I have. But the software download is not working. I cannot get the dang camera that it came with to work. I've been trying my darndest. Yeah. And maybe I should have somebody else look at it who's got more patience for technology than all I do. But yeah, it's been wild looking at my stuff. Is it looking a lot like the pictures that we're able to look at online?
Oh yeah, in my urine there's definitely the double-sided pyramid crystals. I've definitely had like this double broccoli or cauliflowers, dumbbell, like the dumbbell shape I found in me as well. And
any reptiles?
No reptiles, no.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, but
the ones that look like
fascinating
landmines.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and then to try and find online what is it I'm looking at, because it's not just calcium oxalates. There's oxalates bound to iron and
potassium.
It everything. It steals everything, all the good stuff.
Yeah. Wow. So are we at the end of your story? Which isn't the end. I know.
No, it's not the end. It better not be.
But
I would be happy if it were the end. If it all stopped, I'd be more than happy.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing when your hips start feeling better.
Yeah, and I've been taking pictures, I hope to have before and after, because my right knee right now is swollen, visibly swollen. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you, have any of your joints gotten swollen when they were? Yeah, my right knee is definitely swollen and visibly so. So when I have, when it stops again and I can take the picture of, oh, well, here we go, it's normal again. It's quite obvious. But yeah.
Have there been any things along the way that have gotten better that surprised you? Like your hearing's better, your vision is better.
So
your brain's working better.
I had an astigmatism, and that is gone, completely gone, doesn't exist anymore. I can now read without my reading glasses. There are some days when I'm dumping hard where it's still blurry, but for the most part, I don't need the reading glasses to read anymore. So that is one thing that has definitely, how else would that happen, right? Yeah. If it weren't for oxalates leaving your body.
Cognition?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Cognition?
I never really had brain fog. My focus has always been really, really good. Knock on wood. Patience, though, there were definitely issues with patience during my toxicity and that really hard dumping period, at which point I didn't know what was going on yet. Oh my gosh, I would fly off the handle like that for no reason. And I feel so bad about it because I had no idea what was going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm turning into my dad. And now I know why my dad would always fly off the handle, because he was highly oxalotoxic, right?
Yeah.
And he ended up needing a pacemaker in his mid-50s and then started having stroke after stroke in his mid-60s. And that's what ultimately killed him, And my mom, who was also having a very high oxalate diet in her early 40s, had Graves' disease and got a radioactive iodine treatment. And then in her 50s, she had her gallbladder removed because she had gallstones. Hello, calcium oxalates. Yep. And then in her mid-60s, she had renal failure and ended up on dialysis. And she never had a kidney stone in her life, but her kidneys were calcified.
Yeah.
Completely calcified, nephrocalcinosis, I guess it's called. And and she died about 10 years later while on dialysis of heart failure, while on the dialysis machine. And also her body was riddled with cancer. It was in her blood, it was in her bones, it was in her stomach, it was in her colon. It's a high oxalate diet is no joke, people.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you about this, if you've had a similar experience as me, but as I go deeper and deeper down this path, this rabbit hole, if you will, and then, I was just home in Maine visiting family, and little things got said about symptoms this and symptoms that, And it was just another one of those confirmations of like how much of the quote diagnosed diseases out there have oxalates either as a primary or secondary reason, you know, contributing factor. Absolutely. You know, and I have a well, I guess you'd officially say a first cousin once removed, but having probably Raynaud's diagnosis without the actual diagnosis from a doctor, but gets very cold hands and feet. And, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, hello, oxalates.
And we see it so clearly now because we look at it with different eyes, right? And we see it in all our friends and family, and everybody's on pills and medications for this, that, and the other symptoms and illnesses, which the doctor tells them, well, it's just part of getting older, you know, that's just the way it is. But it's not. It's because of a toxic diet, and you just continue to warehouse more and more toxins, and less cells are working, making you feel this way.
Yep. And hearing that your mother's kidneys were calcified, you know, I'll probably make a reel on Instagram, but maybe I should make a video myself. But just this morning, I took pictures. You know, I with my quadriplegia, I have an indwelling catheter into it's called a suprapubic catheter. So right above my pubic bone, I've got a catheter sticking into my bladder, and then I've got a drainage bag between my feet. So I get to see my urine more than the average person because it's clear tubing. But this morning, and for the last few days, my urine has been absolutely ridiculously cloudy. And so this morning, when we changed back, because I swap back and forth for, you know, I have 2 bags so we can clean it and then put a fresh one on. Anyway, it wasn't just the urine that was cloudy. The whole inside of that tubing was totally clouded. So it was so pronounced that I had my caregiver take pictures of a totally brand new tube next to my cloudy tube, and, you know, full length picture, and also zoomed in. But it's just coated.
That is insane.
And so it's all precipitating out. And, you know, just as you said that about your mom, I'm like, thank God I have wonderful kidneys that want to heal themselves.
Seriously, because
they're just clearing it out.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm happy when I see the bubbly urine. You know, you look it up online and it's fear mongering. Oh, that's a terrible thing when you have bubbly urine because, you know, there's proteins in your urine, which there shouldn't be. It's like, well, maybe there should be when your kidneys are trying to get toxins out because they're protecting themselves. It's wrapped up in nice little proteins. It's a package with a bow on it, trying not to do more damage, right? It's like my body knows better. What science, you know, tells us is mostly a lot of BS. And if you look at medical science in particular, you know, 50, 60, 70 years from now, whatever they tell you today ends up being completely wrong. So you're better off just listening to your body than to your medical professional.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for everything you've shared. You have quite a story. And I look forward to maybe interviewing you again, even if it's just a short one in a year or two,
updates,
just to follow up.
Yeah.
Right. So just to wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add or share with our viewers before we close out for today?
Oh, is there anything I'd like to share to all my loved ones, friends, and family? I wish you would not listen to me, but do your own research. You know, don't listen to your doctor either. Be your own doctor. Be your own brain. Learn every day. And if it makes sense, then maybe there's some truth to it, even if everybody else tells you that it's BS.
Okay, words of wisdom. Thank you, Doris. So we're going to sign off. Thanks for watching. Thanks again, Doris, for sharing your story with us. I know it's going to help people. So thank you.